Hello and welcome to a new video. So you remember this example from the last video where we define a function to calculate the volume of a cube and we use it twice. Here basically we are calling cube volume with argument 2 to calculate the result of a volume with side length equal to 2 and a second time with side length equal to 10. We also said that the first line to be executed is the code basically outside all functions, which is the code of this for line here. We said the function definition is not executed, it's just read by Python. Then you start executing from outside the function. Now, any code that starts the execution, okay, any code that will start in the beginning of the program, by convention, this code should come inside a main function, okay? Basically, this is a convention among programmers, is that any code that will start the execution process should be put inside a function called main. Now, how do we do this? Let's see. So we agree this is the code that will start the execution. In order to put it inside a function called main, you will write the header of the function, def main, parentheses, and a colon. Then you will push everything one indentation level. So now these 4 lines are part of a main function. Again, why do we create this main function? This is just the convention among programmers, is that your code that will start executing at the beginning should be inside a main function. Basically, your program should start from the main function. Okay. Now, if you run this, you see no result, right? Again, because you have just function definitions, and function definitions are not executed. In order to execute the code, I would like to start executing from the function main, so I will simply call the function main. So this line here is just a function call to what function? To the function main. Why do I call main, not cube volume? Because main is the function used to store the code, basically, that will start the execution. Main has the code that should start the program. Okay. So when I run this, I will get 8 and 1,000 just as before. Now, let's take the same example here and let's swap the order of the functions. Okay. So what do you think will happen when I run this cell? Now, what we have here is we are calling cube volume before its definition. Remember when we did this earlier in the previous video, we had an error because we are using a function that it's not defined yet. Okay. So, however, if I run this, I get the result as expected. So what is the difference here? The most important thing is the first line to be executed. Okay. So the first line to be executed here is the main function call. The question is, after this line, where would you go? You will go to result 1 equal cube volume 2, right? However, when I execute this line, I have already read cube volume, the definition of cube volume. Let's see this again. So when you run this cell, what will happen is Python will start reading from the top. Okay, Python will read again, and will read. However, this line here is outside the functions, so it should be read and it should be also executed, right? So Python will execute this. However, by the time this is executed, all function definitions are already read. Basically, what happened is when Python read main and the definition of main, it will store it in its memory. Same thing, when Python reads cube volume, it will store it in its memory. So by the time you execute the main function call and you move to result 1 equal cube volume, Python already know about cube volume. Okay, so what matters here is what line you execute first relative to the place of the definition and the place of the function call. Let's make this clearer by showing the line number in this case. Okay, and also let me get the other case where we have a problem. Remember, without a main function, when I call the function before its definition like this, let me show you. So when I run this cell, notice that you get cube volume is not defined. This is what we are talking about. You are calling the function before its definition. So let's take this code and this code here and focus on one thing. What do you think is the first line to be executed here? The first line to be executed in this case is line number 1, right? Now, line number 1 is depending on the definition at what line. So line number 1 is using cube volume, which is defined in line 7. So the definition is in line 7. Okay, take this case. We said this case will give you error. Now let's look at the other case down here. What is the first line to be executed here? It's line 12. Okay, then line 2 will depend on the definition at what line? Line 2 depends on line 7 again. So the definition is at line 7. Notice the relationship between 1 and 7 here. We see that 1 is less than 7, however, 12 is greater than 7. If you have the first line to be executed larger than the definition, you are totally fine. If you have the first line to be executed less than the definition, this will lead to an error. Okay, so in summary, the first line to be executed needs to be after you read all the definition in order to be safe. Okay, this is roughly the idea. Okay. Now let's talk about some other examples. Okay, so assume you have a function called fun, and this function has basically one argument. I will print this argument, then I will return the argument itself multiplied by 2. Then I will print hi. Okay, now I will come down here and I will call fun and I will provide the value 3, for example. Now, what do you think will be printed here? I know that this function call will go to this statement. It will print a, which is 3. Then I will return 3 by 2, which is 6. Okay. Now, will I print hi or not? If you run, you see that you don't print hi. Okay. In order to avoid confusion, let's assign this to b. Now, let's run the code again. Now, what you have is you only printed 3, which is the value of a, but we didn't print hi. Why is this? This is the case because a return statement has 2 purposes. The first one is give you the output, and the second purpose is it will end the function or exit the function. So whenever you execute a return statement, anything below it will not be executed, basically. So from the return statement, you will go back outside the function. All right. Now, there are certain variation to functions. For example, you can have a function with no return statement. Assume you have a function called print hi. This function also can have no argument whatsoever. And the only purpose of this function is printing the string hi, and with no return statement. Now you can call it just by writing the name and parentheses, and you will have hi printed. Now, what do you think will happen when I write a equal to print hi? Then I print a. Now, previously when we did this, we look at the return statement and we store the value of the return statement inside a. However, we don't have return statement here. Actually, when you run this, what you get is none. When a function does not return anything, it is returning what Pythons call none, okay? So we've seen a function with no return statement. We've seen a function with no argument as well. This information here might let you know why you have none when you do this. So when you print welcome, you will have welcome and none. Why do you have none here? Because actually the print function does not have a return statement. It's returning none. If you print the result of print, you are printing none. Okay, that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next one.